We're getting all of our information and all of our self-esteem from social media, which is telling us that the only two things that matter are our looks and making money. Our looks and making money.
Welcome to The Latter-day Lens, your home for faith-promoting, unscripted discussion of current events. If you'd like to contact us, you can send us a text message through the link in the show notes. You could also email us, latterdaylens@gmail.com. If you want to know more about the show, please visit our website, latterdaylens.com. Hey everybody, and welcome to The Latter-day Lens. I'm your host, Matt, and with me, as always, he has never ever let me down. It is Shawn with me today, with me every single time. Shawn, this is almost 3 years we've been doing this, almost.
Yeah.
And you've never, ever let me down. You're like
Matt,
a friend, true blue, true and through.
when we're in the trenches, we were in the trenches together in Ukraine in the 90s. That was post-communism. There were multiple times when you were in a snowy, scary situation and you'd be walking up an ice and the wisdom that you had about falling in the snow. So funny, man. Like I was walking behind you, we were companions, and you're walking up this snowy bank, and I saw you slip, and it was the weirdest technique that you had to fall. You just like threw your whole body so that you landed on your back. So 1 minute I'm looking at your backside, the next second you slip, and I'm looking at you laying, staring at me, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And your answer was,
You got to be safe when you fall, Shawn. You got to,
because you won't break your wrists, right?
right. You clearly, my dad was a football coach. So from the time I was 4 years old, I was taught, here's the ball. You hold onto the ball. When you fall, here's how you fall so you don't lose the ball. And yeah,
Nice.
you got to wrap up the ball so that you don't lose it when you fall. But also it helps you don't break arms or anything like that. So yeah, this is just a natural reflex. If I'm going down, I bring those arms in, turn to the back, because that's the good place to fall. You don't hurt yourself quite so much.
It was just the funniest thing, because I'm kind of a little guy and you're kind of a big guy, and all of a sudden the big guy is just on the ground just staring at me, just laying there. But we were in those trenches together, man, so I can't abandon you now. Man, I was with you when you fell on your back on the ice.
You'll always be there with me. And
Yep.
Shawn, sometime you should go watch a football game. Like, big guys fall on the ground all the time in football games.
Is that how they fall?
If they're smart, yeah. If you watch
Man,
them, right?
Dude, I'm going to go watch. I hope
Watch
that's what they do.
Watch the people that fumble the football. They got their hands flailing all around, holding their ball out there.
What were you
bring it
holding
in
when you
tight.
fell in Ukraine? The Book of Mormon.
Yeah, it's holding that's right, the scriptures. The most valuable rock you could hold on to, the Book of
Nice.
Mormon.
Nice.
Yeah. Watch Bear Bachmeier, is that his name? The BYU quarterback?
I'll watch him.
Is his name Bear Bachmeier?
Bachmeier, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
whatever it is. Watch him. He knows how to he grabs onto that ball like it's a baby, and he both arms holding it tight to his chest, like he knows how to fall. Grab that ball, hold on to it tight.
So the moral of the whole non sequitur story is I'm always here for you because we were in the trenches and you taught me how to fall. Yeah, it really kind of, I don't know, we were all over the place.
Yeah, there's no takeaway. All right, we're not going to open the mailbag this week because it's Thanksgiving, and I just didn't feel like pulling anything out of that mailbag.
Okay, good.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Our message is it's Christmas season. Thanksgiving is past us. I hope that you remember the reason for the season.
Now let's talk about how America is becoming less religious and faithful to God.
Yes, Americans have become less religious over time. This change puts the United States in an unusual position compared to other countries. I have a link to this in the show notes. So if you look at most countries in the world, they fit into one of four categories. There's either a Christian nation where most people are Christian and many people in the country are religious, or there's a lot of religious people in the country and they tend to follow another religion, often Islam, or they have not a lot of religious people, but they're still a majority Christian nation, or there's people who don't identify with any religion at all, with very few religious people. And the United States, we're interesting because Americans, a lot of them still call themselves Christian, similar to European countries, and those countries all have a long Protestant history. But religion is more important in American life than in those European countries. Americans go to church more often. They say religion is more important to who they are. So the United States is kind of like in this middle ground where we have fewer Christians than before, but religion still plays a bigger role than in similar kinds of countries. So religion's on the decline in the US, but it's not as low as it is in like these European Christian countries. So my question is this. What does this pattern mean? Does it mean the US is on a path where we're going to become like Europe, where we're like this Christian nation, but we're Christian in name only and word only, but we're become less and less religious over time? Or is this an example of American exceptionalism? Like, we've been promised that if we're righteous, we'll prosper in the land. So is this growth of non-Christian religion in the US a good thing or a bad thing?
Is that what the statistics said? That there's a growth of non-Christian religions? Do you mean secularism? Or do you mean non-Christian religions are growing?
Secularism would be just a belief of the separation of church and state. But the largest denomination in the United States right now is nothing in particular. So that's growing in the United States, but there's also
that's what you mean by non-Christian growth of religion.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, so it's people who say nothing in particular, but they still say religion is important in their lives. So they're just not identifying with these Christian, typical like Protestant religions maybe, but they still are religious.
Man, before I give my opinion or answer, do you yearn like I do for the great awakenings that happened? What was it? The first great awakening was like 30s. And there's this that great awakening, this spiritual, religious excitement all throughout the Americas. And then it kind of died down.
It's a myth, Shawn. It's a myth. That's a myth.
What?
Yeah.
Why would you say that? That's well documented. It's well documented. There are leaders of that great awakening. Are you going to say that the second great awakening is also a myth? What are you talking about?
It's a myth about how widespread it was, right? So it's definitely true that there were religious groups holding revivals and bringing in converts and things like that. But it wasn't as like widespread. I'm saying America today is more religious today than it was at that time. That's what I mean by it's a myth.
So you're saying that we're in a third great awakening today if you compared it to those other two awakenings? No way, man. Wait a minute. I mean, in what I've studied,
we don't have surveys from that time, Shawn, but it's still like 75% of Americans say religion is important in their lives.
Wait. How could society even function back then if we didn't have surveys?
Without surveys. I forget the guy's name. He's a great Stark and Fink. Rodney Stark is this guy's name, but it might be Fink. He has a book out there where he looks at church attendance numbers in 1776. And he looks at church attendance numbers from 1776 all the way to like 1990. And it was like 20% of Americans were going to church in that early period of the United States. So we don't have surveys, but we do have church attendance. And church attendance in the United States is way up compared to what it was during these great awakening periods.
Okay. This is where we go on tangents, and I start accusing you intellectuals of being just goofball. You think that in the 1700s we had enough record keeping and data to know if people were going to church or not on a regular basis?
We did.
Compared to today?
Because you were required to go to church. Many states had state religions, right? So when we talk about separation of church and state, that was only in the federal constitution because these various states had their own state religion, right? So for example, Pennsylvania was Quake. Yeah, well, prior to the ratification of the Constitution, right?
Gotcha.
The Quakers founded Pennsylvania.
I'm fine to abandon the first Great Awakening. The second Great Awakening is more interesting. We didn't have state religions in the second Great Awakening. Have I veered us off the topic and the question?
No, that's fine. It's fine. You think we're less religious today than the second Great Awakening.
What I think, and maybe you're right, maybe it's wrong, but what I think the second Great Awakening was, and that excitement around the restoration story, the Joseph Smith, the Smith family, and the growth of the church in the early days. You and I have to admit, we felt a bit of that spirit in Ukraine, right? Ukraine had just opened up when we got there. And do you not agree that there was this great awakening happening? Like we felt we were bringing the restored gospel of Jesus Christ to a people who for 70 years under communism, there's no way they were having it. They were receiving it or even open to receive it.
And they definitely had faith in Christ, right? The Russian Orthodox Church was still there in communism. But yeah, there was an openness to the restored gospel because there was new forms of Christianity that they hadn't had before.
Yeah. And I just did an interview on my other podcast, the Mission Stories podcast, with a kid who just got back from Africa. And same thing. He's saying there is this incredible great awakening in Christianity that's happening. We would go into towns that no one had ever heard of the restored gospel. People would we'd meet he said he met a local sheriff and the guy didn't like him. And then they helped him come to Christ. And the guy converted his entire neighborhood within 6 months. This great, exciting awakening. I do yearn for that in America. We've just become so jaded, so arrogant.
No, it's happening in America right now, Shawn.
You think so?
Elder Cook in the last General Conference talked about the amazing growth of the church. And I'm telling you, everywhere I go in the United States is experiencing record growth in church membership.
True. That is true. My ward's experiencing it. Are you experiencing it in your
Rexburg, Idaho? Rexburg, Idaho, in my ward, we have by far more missionary work, more convert baptisms than we've ever had before.
Okay, this is great. Okay, good. Now you're getting me excited. I'll be wrong. I'll give you the points because if you're saying that the third great awakening is happening, but it's only happening in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, this is great news.
Well, I think what I think is happening in the United States is evangelical Protestants have become really, really aligned with Republican politics. And mainline Protestants, but this happened 20, 30 years ago, became really aligned with kind of leftist politics. And I think that for people who are seeking just pure religion, separate from politics, they're leaving Protestantism because it's not delivering what it used to deliver in terms of salvation and And so people are looking for different forms of religion than what they did in the past, which is why so many people say nothing in particular, which is why our church is having tremendous growth. And if I had to guess, I would guess Islam is also having tremendous growth in the United States right now. So it's just, I think, so in terms of the question, I think we're not going to become Europe because Europe had state religions. And as those declined, they didn't allow new religions to come in and take the place of those declining religions. But the United States, because we have such religious diversity here, as people leave Protestantism, they come to these other churches. And by the way, Catholicism's not declining because the Latinos and the Vietnamese and all these people from other countries who immigrate to the United States, they're Catholics. And so Catholicism...
That's fascinating. Catholicism over the past 30 years, despite its great legal challenges, is still growing.
Yeah, in the United States, because the immigrants who come in are Catholic, right? It's not because they're doing missionary work. So I think this is an example of American exceptionalism. We have a special place that allows people, we had the first Great Awakening, like you mentioned, the second Great Awakening. I think there was a third Great Awakening probably in the 90s and 1960s, and we're experiencing another kind of revival, but it's just a shifting of religion to different kinds of religion.
Fascinating. It is leading into our next topic because you said exceptionalism. And I'm going to bring that up in our next topic. It's an interesting word. And you believe but when you say exceptionalism, you don't mean we Americans are amazing. You mean there is a promise given to this promised land of America from God that as long as there is righteousness, there's going to be protection, growth, freedom, prosperity.
Yeah, prosperity in the Book of Mormon sense, right? That it's not necessarily riches, but it's freedom.
Freedom and peace. Peace and freedom.
Yeah. Exceptionalism in that in the New World, right, in North America, we've never had this divine right of kings idea where God chooses a king, right? We've always had this idea that as people, we have the power and authority to find God on our own, and it's not like a top-down sort of affair, right? That's the exceptionalism I mean. It's religious freedom, diversity of religion, freedom of religion, this marketplace of religious ideas, and people have the freedom to choose whatever religion they want to choose. That to me is American exceptionalism in terms of religion.
Well said, D&C 134.4. We affirm that all people should be free to worship how, where, and what they may. And that freedom establishes a situation where people are willing and able to either come to the church, come to the truth, or reject it. But I think many people are. I love it. And you're right. In D&C 29.8, it talks about how God grants all nations. Well, It talks about how God grants all nations their portion of truth according to what they're ready to receive. It seems like if this is a promised land, then yeah, you're right. We should be ready to receive it. And okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so Shawn teased not this topic, but a future topic. This one doesn't have much to do with American I don't think so. Okay. So, yeah, does it?
Kind of does. Kind of
Oh,
does.
okay. All right. So Illinois Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia has made his party angry. They say he used an unfair trick to help his top staff member replace him in Congress. And I'm just going to point out at the beginning, this is not unique to this person. This happens all the time, but this is a recent example, so that's why I want to talk about it. So in the United States, people who want to run for Congress must file paperwork before a deadline. After the deadline passes, no new candidates can enter the race. So Garcia filed paperwork saying he was going to run for re-election in 2026. Then after the deadline passed, he announced that he was going to retire. But just before the deadline, his chief of staff, Patty Garcia, who's no relation, had already filed her own paperwork to run for the same seat. So this means that Patty Garcia is now the only Democrat running for this seat. The district votes strongly Democrat, so she's most likely going to win. So voters in the district are not going to get to choose between different Democratic candidates because there's not going to be a primary because nobody else filed to run for the seat other than Chuy's chief of staff. So it's completely legal, but the question is this morally correct? What's the right way to retire from office, Shawn?
Okay, well, so I asked the question, what could possibly be the motive of Patty Garcia? It's one of two things. Because it seems on the face of it that what she did, even though it's legal, it does seem very sketchy and it does seem very immoral.
Yeah.
I'm not judging whether it is or not, but it does seem that way. And so I got to ask myself, well, what's the motive of Patty Garcia to do this? And I think it's one of two things. It's either noblesse oblige, or it's Gadiant and robbers. It's one of the two. Right? You know what noblesse oblige is? That's the French term that it talks about the exceptional, the privileged, the intellectuals, the smart. They infer that responsibility of the exceptional and the privileged people should act above and in charge of those who are less. Yeah. So if this is her motive, so there's a book called The Tory Radicals by Cecil Driver. He was a British upper class aristocracy kind of guy. And he wrote this theory or this book about this noblesse oblige, basically saying, look, those of us who are exceptional, we don't want to force this down the throats of the ordinary man, but if they could just give us the power to make decisions for them, then everything will be so much greater because we are the exceptional. So if Patty, what's her name? If Patty Garcia's motive is noblesse oblige, which, some up there in politics kind of feel that way, then I think this is very dangerous and very, very terrible. Because the only other alternative for her to do this is a Gadiant and a robber kind of secret combination kind of thing, right? They behind the scenes put a deal together to basically put her into power for selfish reasons, right?
Yeah.
So either motive is horrible, but I don't know. I mean, you're going to come back.
She thinks she's superior to everybody else. It's okay.
Noblesse oblige.
Well, I have to say this in terms of that, because there's a mayoral race in Idaho Falls going on, and I only pay a little bit of attention to local politics, but I recently read about the two candidates, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like one of them would legit be terrible for the city, and one of them would be like has experience, and you say, okay, they're level-headed, and like to me, it's clear that there's one candidate that's qualified, and the other one would just be a disaster for the city. But the one that I think would be a disaster for the city won the first round, right? They didn't win enough of the votes, so there's a runoff. But it's like, there's something to this idea that you can't trust voters, Shawn. Like, I could see where it's like, you can't sometimes. Like, I don't know how people make their decisions, what they vote on. But I could see, like, if I was the chief of staff of Chuy Garcia, I'd be like, if we open this up to all the other Democrats out there, there's a chance something really bad could happen. And the only way to prevent this is to do something that they're not paying attention to.
Don't you hate that more than you'd hate the potential of the people making a wrong decision? That there are people who actually think I am exceptional, more exceptional than the rest of you. I have pride and arrogance and ego that says I'm smarter. I'm better. I will do what's
can't even
better, so
tell.
I'm just going to sneak it in.
I can't even tell you how often this stuff happens, right? Like there's a congresswoman in Arizona. I mean, she won her seat in an election, but I don't want to name all the names of all the people this happened to, but very powerful people in the United States of America got their first seat through something like this, where they didn't have to go and win the election, because if you have to win the election, it's really hard to do. So I would say at least a third of the really powerful elected officials in the United States got their seats through something like this. That being said, yeah, I think it's immoral. And I think I do not agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene very often on very many things, but in this one, I have to give her props. She decided she doesn't want to run for re-election in 2026. So she announces that she's going to step down so that there can be a process, an open process for her seat, for somebody to take that spot. And I think that's the way you do it, right? When you know you're going to step down, you don't try and pass it on to your chief of staff or to your family members. You announce it way in advance so that there can be a competition and let somebody win the seat rather than just sort of have it given to them.
Credit due, right? She did something right. Yeah.
Yeah, good for her. I've never been on this, I don't like hate people in politics. There's sometimes they do things that I'm like, that's a wrong thing to do. But if they do a good thing, I'll point it out. I don't know why Marjorie Taylor Greene did the right thing in this situation, because if I'm being honest, Shawn, if I were in Chewy Garcia's spot, I would do exactly the same thing. 100%. I would say voters are not even paying attention to this. Now, again, I'm also one of those that's mad at Joe Biden for what he did with Kamala Harris, right? I'm like, that was not good for the country, but I don't know. I might have done it.
You're on that team.
Well, he basically did the same thing, right? Joe Biden did exactly.
That Kamala Harris lost.
Well, no, I'm just saying he did exactly the same thing, right? There was no primary election for Kamala Harris. She didn't have to win that nomination.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
And I would have been tempted to do the same thing as Joe Biden if I were in his spot.
Because you are part of the noblesse oblige, Matt. You are a professor of political science up on your.
I do feel like Shawn, tell me you wouldn't do the same thing if you had that spot. You wouldn't want to just make sure that your pal got the spot or your son.
That's corrupt. Well, I mean, what? Why?
Okay. All right.
And I don't have the same, I don't know what the right word is to describe you and the noblesse oblige, arrogance.
Arrogance? That would be the word. You don't have the same arrogance?
I think that God's children are valuable. I think that each individual is smart and is working out their own salvation, their own lives, and they're doing their best they can in various situations. And I think they're to be, I don't agree with majority rule, so there's problems with democracy, but I don't think we need to view the people as, you're all so stupid, I need to save you. It's pretty arrogant.
It's definitely arrogant, but sometimes it's true.
It does seem to be. This is probably the main problem I have with the Democrat Party. If they weren't that way so much, I wouldn't have as much problem with them. As I've learned over the years, I've studied what they are. This is the main problem they have.
No. I can go down the list of Republicans that got their seat. Mitch McConnell got his seat this way.
I mean, just the concept of, I view the people as idiots, and we are the elite, and we must save them and help them and take care of them. Who knows? Maybe you're the political scientist. Maybe it's Republicans too.
Because Trump definitely does not think Americans are stupid. Trump respects the voters. All right. I'm giving you points for that, Shawn. I like that. Okay.
Well, you should give me points because I brought up something other than the invisible hand. I brought up
noblesse oblige. Yeah, I like it. I like when you come up with foreign words to describe things. Remember, I learned from you malum prohibitum and malum.
Yeah. And say, malum and say. Yeah.
Okay, recent surveys show that many Americans are unhappy with how their country is working. About half of American adults say democracy is working poorly in the United States, and only about 1/4 believe government decisions reflect what most people want. This dissatisfaction is especially strong among young women. According to a recent Gallup survey, 40% of American women aged 18 to 44 would move to another country permanently if they could. This is 4 times higher than the number was in 2014. This creates the largest gap between young women and young men that Gallup has ever recorded in any country. Young women also have lost more trust in American institutions like the government and courts and military and elections than any other group over the past 10 years. Canada is the top destination for young women who want to leave, followed by New Zealand, Italy, and Japan. So it's not just a weather thing. They'll go to cold places too. While most people who say they want to move will probably not actually leave, these surveys suggest that millions of Americans, especially young women, are losing faith in their country's institutions and imagining their futures elsewhere. We believe that the U.S. Constitution is divinely inspired. These levels of distrust, if you look globally, usually lead to regime change in other countries. So the question is, what's causing this problem and what can we do about it?
Okay, so assuming that the Gallup poll is correct,
Yeah.
is
They're
it
good at
actually,
this.
assuming it's true,
Yeah.
is it actually a problem? Would it really lead to revolution? Or is this just a sign that free people think independently and are rightfully skeptical of their government and of their institutions? And that's a good thing because that causes people to adjust. It causes things to get fixed. When institutions and governments get too big, bloated, and in control, that's not a good thing. That's not the way our Constitution was set up.
But our Constitution, so we say our Constitution is divinely inspired, but our Constitution doesn't seem to be working if most Americans say democracy is not working in the United States, right? What happens if you live in a country and they're like, these outcomes that we're getting from our government are not reflective of the will of the people? Then people say, well, then we need to change our government. And then that's going to make them say, we need to change the Constitution. So then if I go around to my political science buddies and I say, I think the Constitution's great. I think it's divinely inspired. They're like, are you insane? Like, look at all of the problems that come from the U.S. Constitution. And if we just made these little changes, then we wouldn't have all of these problems in the United States. And so when you have half of the women in our country that are 18 to 44, almost half, want to move somewhere else, then that creates opportunities for politicians to come in and say, let's change the Constitution to fix these problems. And so then that causes a problem for us because then we're like, wait, we believe in the Constitution. So is it, if it's not the Constitution causing these problems, which is what political scientists would say is it's the Constitution's broken, then what is it? It can't just be that we're expecting too much or we're like just.
But just like in, say, Scripture, right? Scripture is also divinely inspired. Yet it takes a lifetime of humble seeking, diligent seeking to understand the mysteries that are within there. And oftentimes we get it wrong, and then we fail, and then we have to debate or study or rethink or get revelation to get things corrected. But if it's divinely inspired, the flaws aren't with God, they're with man, as the Scripture says, right? So if we're going to view the Constitution that way, then perhaps the questioning of like, for example, if the poll says half of women are dissatisfied or think that democracy is failing them, well, maybe now we go back to the divinely inspired Constitution and realize it was never set up as a democracy, right?
Yeah.
It's not a democracy. It's not supposed to be a democracy. Democracy, in fact, probably will fail us, right? Because majority rule is not exactly the best plan. But instead, we're a democratic republic.
Sure, but so is Canada's a democratic republic. So is New Zealand, Italy, and Japan. If the women in the United States want to go to another country, and there's no way to know from this survey like why it is that women want to leave, but it is interesting to me that it started in the Trump administration, that it's increased 4 times since 2014. Like it says to me, there's something that's happened in the last 10 years. Particularly, it's affecting women aged 18 to 44, and it doesn't seem to be affecting men of the same age because only 20% of them want to leave. That means that there's something there's something else going on that we have to find a way to help these women feel like they belong, or we risk losing.
Yeah, I mean, you cited yourself that the growth is happening in the last 10 years. I was watching a video today from this guy, Kwaku. Kwaku's an LDS influencer. I love some of his stuff, hate some of his stuff, but he was talking about, he just came out with this random video today and just was basically saying, look, I'm going to talk directly to millennials, Gen Z, Gen Y. Look, we are too self-absorbed, right? We're getting all of our information and all of our self-esteem from social media, which is telling us that the only 2 things that matter are our looks and making money. Our looks and making money. That's what we're telling each other through social media.
Yeah, but that would affect men and women at the same rates.
I think that women are way more affected by the messages of you're supposed to look a certain way, and that is the primary message in social media for sure.
You don't think it has to do with more sexist policies in the last 10 years that target women or make them feel left out?
Absolutely not. Like, give me one single example of that.
Abortion, right? Abortion would be
What?
one of them.
How does that apply? How's that a sexist policy? That's not
Well,
a sexist
because the
policy.
best way to prevent abortion would be to do something to men who are impregnating women, right? If there's an unwanted pregnancy, then it takes a man and a woman to create an unwanted pregnancy. But our
Yeah, but
policies are all about women and whether or not they can get the medical care they want, prenatal medical care, right?
but there's never been any proposal to punish women different
Sure,
than
it
punishing
punishes.
men.
Sure, it does. Because if a woman, let's say she has some kind of an ectopic pregnancy or something like that, she can't just go to the doctor and get it taken care of. Because in many states, that's against the law, because that could be an abortion. Because abortion
As
isn't
of
even
what? As of what? 3 years ago?
no, this would be like, what, 7 years ago they started passing these laws?
Yeah, but I don't think that's. I think you're attributing an improper motive to that. It's not a sexist law.
I'm saying there are laws,
It's a life concept law, right? They believe that they're
but
not.
it's a law that the policy targets women. The policy affects women.
Yeah,
There's
and you're
nothing.
right. It should target men. You're absolutely right. And if that's
Yeah, that's
the
what I'm saying.
sexist thing, then okay, that makes sense. I think being
There's
anti-abortion though isn't a sexist.
no,
That's
no,
not.
no. I'm just saying
Yeah.
the ways that the laws have changed in the last 10 years reduce the liberty of women, and they don't reduce the liberty of men.
In that one example, or can you think of other
Sure.
examples?
Well, so then there's the downstream effects of that, where it's like hospitals are closing and things like that, right?
Okay, so you're attributing it just to abortion. You're thinking that
Those
half the women in
policies.
America want to leave because abortion has 7 years ago.
So that's one of them where it targets women. We should have a woman. My daughter could tell me a lot more of them. But yeah, there's a lot of policies in the United States that they affect women more than they affect men. And
Like
I know a
what?
lot of women that I talk to that are like, yeah, I don't feel safe in the United States. I feel attacked.
don't want to be ignorant, but it seems like that's just not true. There's
I
no
think
way
it's
that's true.
some of
Man,
the
ask every woman that you know if there are things that men can do that they can't do.
yes.
What? Name one.
Well, I just talked about
Men can't
healthcare.
have an abortion. What do you
That's
mean?
what I'm saying. That's why when you create a policy that restricts women's access to healthcare, it has a disproportional effect. I think there's laws related to like child support and custody and things like that. Well, because women primarily become the caregivers, right? And so they're not getting the support that they need to care for children that are in need and things like that.
Yeah, but I think on the reverse side, if you go too left with that, then you get a welfare state, and that's. I mean, I'll go along your line of thinking. That's just as sexist. When welfare state laws say that if you, a woman, have a man in your home, you will not get welfare, then that again is sexist against the men, maybe, and it's definitely not good for the women. So I think that's failed us. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think that is the central issue here.
Now you're going to make me Google sexist policies over the last 10 years.
You were so comfortable sitting back in your chair.
But again, the survey doesn't tell us anything about it, but I think it's something as members of the church where we believe in a divinely inspired constitution, we need to think about how the policies we support affect the way people think about the Constitution itself. And if we govern in a way, or if we support policies that make people feel marginalized or make them feel like they don't have a voice or they're not represented, then we risk losing the Constitution that we think is divinely inspired.
But the way people feel is different from the reality sometimes. And if we really were prepared and had a discussion about what can men do that women cannot do by law and by right in our society, the abortion
They can
topic is a
impregnate
very
lots of
nuanced
women.
one.
Abortions. Well, so all I'm saying is
that
this.
aside, I don't think there's anything we could come up with really.
I'll just say it this way, Shawn. If I were running for office and I saw that 40% of women aged 18 to 44 want to leave the United States, I'm going to come up with some kind of a platform that speaks to them. Like, I don't know what it is that makes them feel that way, but I would definitely figure out what that is, because that's going to win me an election right there. If I can appeal to that crowd, I can win an election. And if it requires some kind of constitutional argument, like let's pass an equal rights amendment, let's pass some kind of a constitutional right to la 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 la, like let's modify the Constitution in whatever way, I
it
can
wouldn't
win
work.
an election on that.
But I don't think you would, because it wouldn't work, because the reality,
How many things
an
did Trump
equal
campaign on that he
rights.
couldn't do?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. I don't have to do it. I just campaign on it and then fight for it, fight for it, fight for it. And I mean, eventually, if people start seeing that I'm winning elections based on that, then I'm going to get more politicians on board eventually.
Okay, but what is the powerful message and platform that actually convinces it? I mean, I wish we knew. I wish we could have done a little more research on what is it that is making 40% of the women unhappy here. The only reference was that it's the democracy isn't working.
Right. So we don't know because they don't ask that question. But if I were running for office, I
You
would
go find out.
definitely do focus groups. I would definitely figure out what message I needed to do. And if I could make I'm just saying, like, when I see this as a comparative political science person, when I see this in other countries, then I say regime change is on the way. Like if you were to poll people in Russia right now and say, is democracy working in Russia? You're going to have a higher percentage that say, yes, it's working in Russia than you do in the United States. And I'm one of those that thinks like regime change could happen soon in Russia. And
Who would
they have
who would
higher,
who would say that there's more democracy in Russia than in the United States?
Russians would. Russians,
Okay.
right? Russians are more satisfied with democracy in Russia than Americans are with democracy in the United States.
That kind of proves the whole point. There is no democracy in Russia. It's just that their government has taken away the right of free speech and free press and have told them that democracy is happening in Russia when it's actually not. They're being bamboozled. That's what I think is happening here. If women are unhappy because they feel like they have less rights than men and they want to leave, it's because they're being bamboozled by some message that isn't true.
Okay, well, I'll give you points for that, Shawn. Okay, this is the big question. We're going completely away from politics. We're going into things that really, really matter a lot. Fictional movie and television franchises. Okay, so two of the most popular franchises are having big weeks. Stranger Things dropped several episodes of its final season, and Wicked just released the sequel to, it's called Wicked for Good. And they're like, people are super excited about this. So
Oh yeah.
I identified.
I got
What's
in I got in huge trouble this past weekend because my whole extended family, they got tickets. We go watch Wicked, and I was critical of it, and I got
How
beat
dare you,
up.
Shawn?
I
How
got
dare
beat up.
you?
I know. Okay.
I went to watch Wicked for my anniversary. We saved it for but because I've seen Wicked on stage 2 times, and I really like
Yeah, you like musical theater in general.
I do. I like live theater. I don't like concerts. I love live theater, and I have to tell you, Shawn, when I went to Broadway for the first time and saw a show on Broadway, I was like, okay, this is like
You cried.
there is no better art form to me than a Broadway show in Broadway.
Wow. Wow.
It's amazing. Like, yeah, it's phenomenal.
Well, we disagree. I respect your opinion, but
That's right.
you're wrong.
That's right. But I saw Wicked on Broadway, and I'm telling you, Shawn, and I didn't even have great seats. It's amazing. Anyhow, and so I have a different view of Wicked than probably you do, because
Yes, I have a very different view.
I saw
I
it
mean,
on Broadway, and I saw it some other time, and I was like,
so
"This is phenomenal."
you were impressed by the presentation of it, not necessarily the story, but
Right,
the way that they presented it, right?
right,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
The
The
story.
lipstick, the lipstick on the pig.
No, Shawn, the presentation. Stop. Okay. All right. Well, I identified what I think are some common themes between Wicked and Stranger Things that makes them both popular
Yeah.
and probably makes resonate with members of our church. So these are the ones that I identified, and I want to know which is the common theme that members of our church should hold on to as like this is like the true why we love. Okay, so one of them would be friendship and loyalty. Another one would be individuality and acceptance. One that I think Shawn might like is the dangers of unchecked power and corruption. There's like the coming of age, character growth sort of stuff. And then another would be the nature of good and evil. And so the question, Shawn, is which of those, or did you find your own common theme in these franchises
Those are
that
good.
like members of our church would be like, yes, these are fictional stories, completely made up, but there's some truth in this theme that is important in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a great job identifying all the themes that LDS people would relate to. I don't know, dude. I'm gonna say the good and evil one. I mean, every story or in all of media, the stories that continue to resonate most are when there's the hero's journey through a good versus evil storyline. But I'll disagree that Wicked did a good job, at least in the movies, to really make like I thought that was the opposite message, was that there's ambiguity in who's right and what in right and
Yes.
wrong.
That's the theme, Shawn. It's the nature of good versus evil. What it means to be good and what it means to be evil, and our inability as humans to accurately judge that, right? So
Okay,
if you think
good.
Stranger Things has a number of these characters that pop up that when you first meet them, you're like, oh, that's a bad person because of the choices that they make. But then they make some heroic choices later on, and you're like, wait a minute. Maybe that person's not, maybe we shouldn't judge good and evil by the choices they make, because people can make bad choices and make good choices.
Okay, gotcha.
And then
Okay.
and then in Wicked, the nature of good and evil is like, again, not to get too deep into the story because I'm not, but if you think about the characters, you've got the green witch, I don't remember their names. The
Elphaba.
green Elphaba, she is thought of as evil because she's different and all of that stuff. She spends the whole story trying to do good and be good. And every time she tries to do good, it ends up not working out the right way and ends up making things worse. And that's why she sings that song about no good deed goes unpunished. I'm not going to try anymore. And then you have the other one, the good witch, who she looks good and all of that stuff, but she's not really doing good. But then by the end, it's like, no, it's like, you have to, it's something like it's like being good, not trying to do good, but being good is what makes you good, right? So it's like
So
what
did you
it means
see,
to be good.
is the story to you that the green witch was the good and
Uh-uh.
the other witch was the
Mm-mm.
bad?
No, the story to me is that by the end of it, they both realize that, again, it's not your actions that you do that make you good or bad, but it's who you are on the inside that makes you good or bad. So to me, both of them have the same thing, right? Where they're saying good and evil is not judged by your actions, but by who you are. And you can become good.
So you're kind of an authority on this. You've written books. You've done these studies on. No, you are, haven't you?
Yeah.
Isn't that the theme of your recent
Yeah.
book you just
Yeah.
wrote?
Okay. Yeah.
Becoming what's the phrase that is?
Religious becoming.
Yeah, becoming.
Yeah.
But how do you teach us? How do you delineate between someone who has become good versus someone who is behaving not good? I'll give you an example. There's this beautiful couple that just got baptized in our ward. And we went to their baptism, and this amazing woman gets up, and the first thing she says was, I was kind of surprised to put this like white jumpsuit on for the baptism. She's like, because it literally reminded me of the orange jumpsuit that I've worn the majority of my life in federal prison. And we were like, whoa, we didn't know that. But what an amazing contrast, right? And she just went off talking about her background and why, and how for the first time in her life, coming to Christ, she feels the love of God. She feels the love of the saints. She feels loved, and she's becoming a different person. Now, you could easily look at her behaviors and, oh, she was in prison and she has tattoos all over her, right? And many people could judge that and be like, well, that's wrong, that's bad. But that's not true. So I get your point in saying, look, they've become disciples of Christ, humble, broken, repentant disciples of Christ. And the things that they've done don't matter anymore. They've been washed away. They've been suffered for. But how do you, with our that's an extreme example. How do you then differentiate between the doing, like in your Wicked story, Glinda was doing bad. She was doing wrong, right? But you're saying, yeah, but she was a good person.
Glinda learns that being good is not the show that you put on, but you have to be good in your core, and then the things you do are good things. You know what I mean? She learns that she has to change because she sees things. Both of the witches, I don't know how to call it. Both of them have a perception problem where they're seeing things not the right way. And it's not till the very, very end that they're both able to take off whatever glasses that they've been perceiving the whole world through and say, wait a minute, okay, to be good, in the Green Witch's case, to be good, I have to leave because there's no way for the good in society to happen if I'm still here. So I'm going to be good and leave. And the other woman says, in order to be good, I have to now actually study and learn and like.
But doesn't that suggest in order to be good, you have to behave good? Your behavior and actions do matter?
So to me, the gospel analogy is after Adam and Eve leave the Garden of Eden, and they repent in the Pearl of Great Price, they both say, because of my transgression, my eyes are open. And their repentance process allows the scales to kind of fall from their eyes, and they're able to see things that they never could have seen had they not transgressed. And I think that there are people like that in this life, that they only come to know Christ through the repentance process. They transgress, they sin, they do whatever. And then in that repentance process of coming to Christ, they come to know him in a way that, like Alma the Younger, they can now suddenly see things as they really are. And there's other people who go through life just kind of doing the right things all the time. And some of the people who do the right things all the time have this kind of conversion moment where they come to know Christ and they are born again, basically, right? So to me, being good is being born again, but there's not one path to that. Some people's path to that is a path of always trying to do the right thing. But even when you try to do the right thing, you're still going to make mistakes and you have to sin, right? And other people's path to that is making lots of mistakes along the way and then having repentance moments. But so to me, then, good versus evil is repenting and then having that change of heart, or not doing that. And I think both of those show you that good and evil isn't the sum of the choices we make, but it's, have we become something? Have we been transformed through Christ? Although they don't say it that way, right? And that's what distinguishes good from evil. And even the scriptures say that, Shawn, right? Alma says, except a man is born again, you cannot enter the kingdom of God. I guess Jesus says that in John, but there's also something like that in Mosiah.
It also says that you, after baptism, you become a new creature. You're a different creature. You do have to be changed, becoming one with Christ. Yeah, obviously those stories are more, they don't obviously preach Christ, but I see now where you're tying it into that. Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
That's
so
good.
to me, that's not the part I love about Wicked. I like the music in Wicked, and and I like the spectacle, as Shawn calls it, the lipstick on a pig. But if you have to say a common theme, that's also, I like in Stranger Things the character Susie, who's a member of our church. I like that she's not, because you see a lot of like portrayals of members of our church in the media right now that I don't love. I don't love being portrayed as some of these things. Susie's one I can get behind and be like, yeah, she's a cool member of our church. So that makes me like Stranger Things. Don't you think she's the cool member of our church and all of the media? If you're like, okay, I have to pick one character in the media that's properly identifies a member of our church, I'm going to pick Susie over everyone else.
I think that stupid TV show that every member of our church watches called, what is it? Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Well,
you don't think that all you listeners out there, that's not a better representation of over Susie?
Not picking that one. I'm not picking Farmer Ballerina. I'm not picking The Real Housewives of Salt Lake. I'm not picking Sister Wives. I'm not picking all the Hulu shows that make us look bad. Maybe Mark Rober or the Outdoor Boys guy. I'd pick one of them maybe.
Okay, good. That's good.
But if it's fictional, it's going to be Susie.
Okay,
it's not going to be the Book of Mormon musical missionaries. Like, kudos to the Stranger Things guys who, they're not members of our church. They're not even connected to it. I'm not choosing any of the South Park stuff. Like, they get it right in Stranger Things. So that's the reason I like that. One reason I like that.
All right, so there's Susie's why you like Stranger Things, and the lipstick on the pig is why you like Wicked.
And Shawn, Stranger Things has the death metal. It's probably not death metal. It has the guitar solo.
Thrash metal.
Yeah. And that reminds me of you.
That's true. Okay, that's good. That's true. Right. That's true.
You're the guy that would climb on the roof and play the guitar while the demons come try to eat you to save all of your friends.
To Metallica's Master of Puppets. Yeah, that's true. We've done that before.
That was a real song that he was playing?
What did you just say to me? Metallica's Master of Puppets? You don't know that that's a real song?
I thought the Duffer Brothers wrote that song for the Stranger.
I would say, knowing you, that you'd be actually intentionally playing dumb, but I don't think you actually know that was Metallica's Master of Puppets.
Of course, somebody told me that, but I purposely said that because you said Wicked was lipstick on a pig, and so I was like, okay, I'll get back to Shawn. Hey, listeners, let us know what you think about this. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Also, if you're a woman and you think that we're wrong about why you're upset, let us know why you're upset. Then we don't have to do a focus group. We'll read it on the podcast. Hey, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you guys again next week. It's always sad to say goodbye, but we hope you'll join us again next week. New episodes drop each Wednesday. In the meantime, subscribe to the podcast, give us a like, and visit our website for past episodes. You can comment on the show at realmormonism@gmail.com. Thank you for making us one of the most listened to podcasts. We love our listeners.